Welcome to Coast Connection. I'm Paul Winn. Tonight we're going to be talking about Crime Stoppers program, a program that has reached worldwide significance. And tonight to explain it to you is Constable Gary O'Brien from the RCMP. Welcome, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. Listen, Crime Stoppers. I've seen some of the reenactment things on television, but I'd like you to give me sort of the layman's version of what Crime Stoppers is.
Well, Crime Stoppers is an amazing program. As you said, it's worldwide. It's in over 30 countries. It takes millions and billions of dollars of drugs and stolen property and puts bad guys behind jail. But what it really is, it brings the community together with the police and people in their community and the media. And without all those, it wouldn't work. It's like a natural symbiotic relationship. We're all feeding off each other. And our relationship with Shaw TV, for example, we've done 34 reenactments. And they're such a high quality. We've received not only provincial, but international awards for the work they've done. And this is all significant because utilizing the media, it gets the message to the people. And they want to see it. They want to visualize it, see what happened when somebody got beat up or a house got robbed or a 79-year-old woman was attacked in her home. It helps, and it actually solves crime.
Yeah, that seems rather important because I would imagine that you don't have to identify yourself if you give a tip to the Crime Stoppers, so you can remain anonymous and be very helpful in that way. So that would be like a message to people. You don't have to be afraid if you witness a crime. You don't have to get involved. You don't have to jump in the middle of it. You could just pick up a phone, call Crime Stoppers, and then let the professionals handle it.
That's what it's about. It's an extra layer of protection. Like, we need people who will come forward and identify themselves. That's the crux of our justice system. But there's many situations, for example, if you're living beside a drug house, or you know there's criminals in your community and you're scared to do something, Crime Stoppers gives you that opportunity so you never have to identify yourself. Your IP address is scrubbed. There's no phone messaging. Your name is never recorded, and you never have to testify in court. And that's the backbone of the program, and that's why it's so successful.
And it's important that people know that, because I know sometimes people they're afraid, you know, that they're afraid if I'm going to get beat up afterwards, or I'm going to be dragged through the courts, and people then would know who gave the information to the police, and they feel that their safety is in danger. So now we've got this capability of being invisible, if you like, and I can see something, and it doesn't have to be an ongoing crime. You know, it could be a hit and run on the street. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to be that, but you might be able to identify the make of a car or something, clothes that a person was wearing that would give the police a hand up in terms of getting, eventually, hopefully, arresting that. You know,
I can tell you, because I've been a police officer for 28 years,
okay.
And our program, we receive hundreds of tips. And it's that one little piece that we're missing. And it may be enough to solve a murder, to find a missing child, to stop bullying in a school, to solve a significant arson. And our police officers use Crime Stoppers on a daily basis. They rely on it.
How long has the one been based out of Nanaimo here?
We started in 1990, and during that time we've received about 7,000 tips, but 500 criminals behind bars. Based on that information, we've taken almost $10 million in drugs off our street, seized about $2 million in stolen property. And it's evolved so nicely, because it used to be the 1-800-222-8477 people would call.
Right.
That's nice, but we've evolved with our technology now. So most of our tips, 70% of them, are web-based. So people are using their iPhones or their Android products or their laptops to securely and safely put that tip to us. And the beauty is, it allows a two-way flow of communication with the coordinator so that more information can be developed from that tip.
Then that information, does it disappear? I mean, like, in terms of identifying the person who gives the tip?
Well, the tip stays.
Okay.
It stays on our server forever, but there's nothing identifying who that tipster is.
Okay.
And if the tipster accidentally identifies themselves, we will say, I'm sorry, we can't go ahead with this tip because you've self-identified.
Right.
It doesn't happen very often, but it does, so we're always cautious of that.
I think maybe they might mention it for a sense of believability, credibility. I'm not just a crank phoning in and giving you some information.
For sure. And if they do self-identify, we will vet that tip before anybody else will see it. So we're always looking at protecting the identity of the tipster.
Yeah, because that's the kind of thing that I was reading about Crime Stoppers, and as you mentioned, all over the world, and the benefit that it's had. It's gotten communities to be a little more alert about what's happening around them. Not so that they're nosy parkers, and causing trouble, but if they see something illegal going on in their neighborhood, they have an opportunity to phone somebody. And
they do.
At least get an investigation on it. If it pans out, it pans out.
We're always careful about talking about the tips we receive, but in generality, we may receive a tip from a high school student who goes to school one day, opens a locker, and beside them is somebody who's got a weapon or drugs. They know that the younger brother or sister may receive that. They're not comfortable telling the administrators of the school because they don't want to be seen as siding or giving information on other students. They're not comfortable telling their parents because maybe they're at crossroads with their parents. So what do? They contact Crime Stoppers. And then we have police officers in the school who will follow up on that information.
I was thinking of some of the ads that you've had, like there's I can't remember what it's called, about cars, people breaking into cars. Is it an automatic system in the car that people, you said bait cars.
Bait cars.
That's the one I
Yes.
was thinking of. Bait cars. Is that part of your Crime Stoppers program?
No,
as
that's a
well?
separate program.
Okay.
But that also is information that we get on tipsters on who's breaking into cars in your community.
Yeah. Yeah, because it seems like they're sort of marriable. It's the same kind of thing. You're getting thieves off the street, criminals off the street. And but I was thinking that they might be, married together.
Well, that is a very significant thing because theft of vehicles is huge, impacts on all our communities. And that's one of the big areas where our tips come from. The other ones, of course, are always drugs. Yeah. Who's selling drugs in our community? Because it's a filtering down to the youth. Right. And that's why people do it. They want to let us know where the drugs are and where they're coming from. And that's exactly what we need.
Okay. How about physical violence, reporting on physical violence that people see? Do you get many of them?
We get the assaults, especially when we're using the media. We use the media to get the word out of a crime that's unsolved. Okay. And we let the people know, hey, if you want to help us, there's Crime Stoppers. You never have to identify yourself, and you can receive an award for your information.
Well, what kind of, how many people sort of would apply for the award? Do you know? Got any figures on that?
Meaning how?
Like people that phone in a tip but don't collect the
interesting. Across the board internationally, it's about 30%. That means only 1 out of 3 ever do it for the money.
Right.
They do it because they want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And we don't really care what the reason is. Yeah. For example, often you'll have people in organized crime try to knock off their rivals. That's fine. We'll take the information because we don't know who it's from. Yeah. But only 30%. In our program, since 1990, we're at about 8%. That's only 8% of the people are doing it for the money. That's amazing because they want to do it to make a difference in their community.
Yeah, I like to believe that too, because I think that most of the people want a comfortable, safe neighborhood, to live in. And I can't, whether you've got young children or whether you're an aged person, you want a comfortable neighborhood that when you step out your door or leave your house unattended, that's the way it'll be safe when you get back, and you'll be safe when you're away from home. Yeah.
And safety is the thing, and that's why now we're really advocating for submitting the tips electronically using your iPhone. The millennials, it's fixed to their hand. They have their phone with them 24/7. Use it to help solve crime.
Yeah. Well, you see a lot of tape versions. You're right. People now, they have videotapes on their cameras, and they're videotaping things, and then being able to introduce them as information for getting a criminal off the streets. Now, one of the things that how does a community become informed about the program? Is there some kind of Do you ever have any educational sessions or information sessions where a community can come in and say, look, we've got neighborhood watch in our community. Can you help us with how can we proceed with Crime Stoppers?
We do. Again, it's getting back to the media.
Yeah.
We use the media to advocate on our behalf. But we also recognize that the youth have to understand what Crime Stoppers is. And in my role as a coordinator, and we have one in almost every city across British Columbia where there's the Crime Stoppers program, we'll go into the high schools and we'll talk to the youth from grades 7 and 8 upwards, what Crime Stoppers is, how it works, how they can use it. And then building on that, we work with the media and we'll do educational pieces. For example, this month is National Crime Stoppers Month. So this is a great forum to educate people on what Crime Stoppers can do for their community.
Yeah, because that's crucial, I think, is getting information to people on how to do stuff, so they don't feel, that it's unusual, they get comfortable with it, and more than likely, when they do see something, even if they're not sure, they'll feel comfortable enough to phone and report it, then leave it up to the professionals to check it out and see if there's any validity to, their concern. And I think
they've got to be comfortable and they have to be safe.
Yes.
And that's the thing. And now that's why we're always updating our technology. The new program we're getting in about 2 or 3 months will allow people to download videos and audio recordings to the Crime Stoppers tips.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. That's exactly because the iPhones and the Android products put out beautiful pictures, great videotape, which we can use to solve crime.
Yeah. What is it, Neighborhood Watch? Does that tie into any of your stuff at all?
It does. It's called Block Watch now.
Watch, yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
Neighborhood Watch was the first one. It sort of morphed into Block Watch. It's about neighbors taking responsibility for their communities. And when we go out and give presentations to the groups, we inform them about the Crime Stoppers.
Yeah.
Because it's reporting suspicious activity in a timely manner.
Yeah, because I know that Block Watch, with the Block Watch program, that if a neighborhood has an active Block Watch group, they can get reduced insurance rates on their home, and that, not that should be the driving force, but I'm just saying that it's an incentive to have a fully organized and operational Block Watch.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And we've had people come to us and say, we want to get a Block Watch going because I want to get a reduction on my home insurance.
Yeah.
And it can be upwards of 15%. But the other people, it's issues that are impacting on their quality of life.
Right.
It could be a drug house. It could be a party house. It could be kids partying on the weekend. It could be homeless situations. What it does, it rallies the neighbors together, and they work and they start owning that neighborhood. And then we, as the police, just provide resource and expertise to assist in developing their program. But they own it. That's why it's so successful.
Yeah, I know that there's certain areas that in the community that I've noticed close to like where I live. There's an elementary school, and many times I see kids. I hear a broken glass, and then there are kids climbing on the roof of the school and trying to, and then the broken glass. So that's when I have to phone,
That's right.
or other people in the community phone. But it's important to know what's in your neighborhood. Like, I walk my neighborhood every day, like just out for a walk and take my dog. So I'm out there. So I know what my neighborhood looks like. I know what kind of buildings are in my community, and I pretty much have a good nodding relationship with neighbors. And I think that's something that people can do in their community, is get out to know their community. Walk around.
It's so simple, but so effective. And we tell people when they're setting up a Block Watch, you may have lived here for years, but you don't know the names of the people. By getting involved in the Block Watch is now Joe that walks the dog, or Sally that's getting the mail, and you start making that personal connection. And that's how you start developing your community.
Yeah, because it's, you're right, you hear stories about people who say, well, I've lived here, like you say, but I don't know my neighbor. I see them every once in a while, but it doesn't take much. But I would think if you had like a Block Watch program, you might decide to have a local neighborhood picnic at a local park, which you could then invite your neighbors to and that would get the information out. I think it's the kind of thing that if it prevents crime and we can stop and save dollars. I mean, it's because everything seems to amount to the government's not going to spend money on something if they can save it and put it to somewhere else. Maybe put it to good use. Do they calculate a saving of what the Crime Stoppers program does against the budget?
It would be hard to do, but you can only imagine the impact that $10 million of drugs would have on your community. The impact that these 500 criminals went undetected, or that stolen property and the insurance claims was never recovered. In our block watch, we now have 7,000 people in our community, and over 63 blocks, so all the way from Lanceville to Cedar, making a tremendous roads. And it's increasing. What it does, it increases the two-way flow of communication with the police. Because they know things that we can't be on every corner.
Sure.
But they live in those communities and they see and they hear things. And we start sharing of information. It's a fantastic program.
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing about, I don't know about other communities, but in the Nanaimo area, there are, I guess, about 6 or 7 neighborhood associations, like within their community, and they're fairly active. They're having events, and they would be a primary group, I think, for community people to get in contact with. They don't necessarily have to join them, because to belong to one, you just have to live in the neighborhood. But if you want to participate in their activities, I see them as a good link, to a Crime Stoppers program as well.
Absolutely are, and we often will go out and give presentations to the various neighborhoods. And from that, often block watches will develop, or Crime Stoppers information will flow.
Yeah. Because it's when I'm trying to think of things that my mind's going crazy about what I would personally do if I saw a crime. How would I react, and what would I do to report it? Like I'm thinking, if I felt I had to protect myself, like from being seen and being identified as the person who, pointed the finger. I was just trying to think of how I would handle that. And, Crime Stoppers, get my little phone out and phone anonymously and set up the tip. Yeah.
And we tell people, never put yourselves in harm's way, ever. So remove yourself, get safe, then report it. But don't wait. Don't hold on to the information so you can share something at coffee the next morning. Report the information now so we, as the police, can do something about it.
Yeah, there was something that crossed my mind was like, how would you, like sometimes people can become very suspicious of a neighbor if they don't know them, and it may be nothing wrong, if you know what I mean. It's just well, I think they look strange, or they're new, they've only been here 14 years, or something, Is there some way you guys can handle that situation to check it out before you break a door down and think that there's a crime being?
Well, the block watch is the perfect way for the neighbors to get to know each other.
Right.
Right, and that's where you're breaking barriers. That you're realizing that the person's okay. They might look different. They might live a different lifestyle, but they're still okay because they have the same concerns that we have. We want to keep our kids and our home safe.
Yeah, no, that's true. I was just thinking, I had this image in my mind of, like looking at a neighbor. God, I don't know, that guy, he goes out every night at midnight, comes home at 6 in the morning. What's, well,
working step.
He may be working late, but I was just thinking about it and saying, I give a tip thinking he's out doing night robberies or something. But to prevent that kind of thing, I was just curious. But you're right, the educational program, letting people know, first get to know your neighbors so that you're not making false,
That's right.
reports. And when you have a neighborhood where people are knowledgeable about each other, it's a safer community. It's like anything else. I mean, if I see you walking down the street and you're in my neighborhood, I say, hello, how are you? Or, I don't have to engage in a tremendous conversation with you, but if we know each other as being in the neighborhood, and are friendly, I think that would be extremely helpful.
That simple gesture of saying hello
Yeah.
can make the difference between a house being broken into or not. And as you said, as your neighborhood, you know who lives there.
Yeah.
You know what cars should be there. You know there's a flow, there's an ebb and flow of any neighborhood. And all of a sudden somebody comes into it, and you say, who's this person? Yeah. Like, where are they going? And there's nothing wrong with getting on your phone and asking your neighbors, has anybody ever seen this person before? It could be somebody visiting. It could be somebody scoping houses out to break into them. Yeah. So that's the key, using your phone appropriately and gesturing to these people. So if they avoid eye contact with you, why is that? Yeah. Why are they trying to look like they're invisible? Maybe they think they're not seen because they're not saying hi. Yeah. And that's a telltale sign.
No, that's important, because I think that when people in the community where I live, we seem to be having parties all the time. We don't have a particular block watch program, but we seem to have house parties, and that was phenomenal to me. I thought that was a great way to get to know, and as a result, people who go away on trips will phone one of the neighbors and say, "Look, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. Here's my key to my house. I've got my alarm set, but I've given your name to my company in case something goes wrong. You're the person they can call, so that, and if the police arrive, somebody's got a key to the house if they need to get in, and so that's important. I think it helps stop crime. I mean, it's not that the Crime Stoppers aren't going to get information. It's just that I think it's one way of a preventative type of program is get to know your neighbors.
It is. You don't have to have a formalized block watch. No. What you presented right there is you're looking after each other. Yeah. That's exactly what you're doing. You have somebody who's there who has a key that you trust, maybe with alarm code that will check on your property, and in turn, you'll probably look after theirs. Yeah. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, no, it is a nice feeling to be in a neighborhood like that.
Sure,
and I think that people who move into a neighborhood, it's always strange. When I first moved into Nanaimo, I mean, it was I didn't know anybody. I moved here. It was mainly my wife that moved me here, but I followed her, and so. She liked it. She saw a house she wanted and said, we're moving, and we moved. And so then I was in a community that I was totally unfamiliar with. Didn't know anybody. I had not a soul that I know in Israel. Now I seem to know almost everybody, it seems like, which is good. I think it's really good. And if the people watching, today, watching this program, get an idea of how they might be able to get their community involved, get the block watch going if that works for them, or just have a neighborhood party down at the local park or something in the nice weather.
I absolutely agree. We can't even get a block watch going on our street, which is ironic because I run the program. Right, yeah. But we know our neighbors. We're always communicating, either on Facebook or texting, and we look after each other. So that's exactly what we're doing, whether it's formalized or not.
Yeah, it's just, you're right, knowing your neighbors, because if you don't know your neighbors, then misinformation can go forward, or it's not necessarily something that would be a crime, but I have lived, again, in my own neighborhood as an example, a lot of elderly people, and if I don't see them for a couple of days, I've gone and knocked on the door.
Good for you.
You know what I mean? Like it's just they just, oh well, I wasn't feeling well, and they're okay, but if you don't see them, it could be a problem. But
the isolation, the shut-ins, we're always advocating through the block watch is to reach out and find out how they're doing.
But also I was thinking, I'm in my mind and set in terms of the Crime Stoppers program. They might have been a victim of a crime too that just went unnoticed. Somebody could have quietly broken in the house, done them harm, and then disappeared, and nobody would know.
And you'd never know unless you checked in on them.
Yeah, and it's kind of important. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time here, and I was wondering, is there anything that you thought maybe we should have covered that we haven't covered to give people information out there that would make them want to go out and be active?
Yeah. Crime Stoppers is safe. It's an extra layer of protection. Don't hesitate to send your tip electronically. You can use the phone number. You never have to worry about being identified. If you want to receive a reward, it's out there if your tip leads to an arrest. It's an effective tool. It should be available to everybody, and it is. So we just want to know that your protection is always guaranteed with Crime Stoppers. Always, 100%.
Because you're not going to be upset if somebody phones you and it pans out to be nothing.
Nothing at all.
You know, it's not, but, and I think that's also important because people say, well, you know, the police have better things to do than, you know, show up and there's no crime committed. And that's important. But it's kind of a, if I can use it, I see the Crime Stopper program like a safety belt, you know? It's like a safety belt. It's something that you in the community can phone, get something that might be on your mind off your mind and feel comfortable about it, you know? And it's, that's the way the life is. And well, we're just about out of time here. And I really want to thank you for coming out and taking this time with me. And I've learned a lot. And I learned a lot because as soon as I heard about the Crime Stoppers month, I started reading, you know, just looking up the information. And I didn't realize how active it was because it seems to be one of these undercurrent things within our community. It's always present, always working, but you don't always know that it's there. And I think that I salute you, you know, and I salute the people who run the Crime Stoppers program. And I thank you very much for coming in and being part of our program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for watching Coast Connections, and tune in next week when we'll have another exciting program for you to partake in.